Clayton Christensen is a researcher who's, I think written this book called Innovator's Dilemma or something, which is very famous. So you guys can go through that. I'm sharing my screen and we'll start reading it. And yeah, the Innovator's DNA. I think there'll be a lot of other byproducts of this workshop. When I say a lot of byproducts of this workshop, how to read a business article and how to read a leadership article, I think we could discuss that. If time permits, I would want to pick a few excerpts from a few books which I read today. So today being Dashara and being a holiday, it was sort of nice to get away from work and read a lot of books. So how do I find innovative people for my organization, and how can I become more innovative myself? I'll appreciate if your mics can be on mute unless you're talking, please. Basic manners in the online world now. Yeah. How do I find innovative people for my organization, and how can I become more innovative myself? These are questions that stump senior executives who understand that the ability to innovate is the secret sauce of business success. Unfortunately, most of us know very little about what makes one person more creative than the other. Perhaps for this reason, we stand in awe of visionary entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, eBay's Pierre Omidyar, and Procter & Gamble's A.G. Lafley. How do these people come up with groundbreaking new ideas? If it were possible to discover the inner workings of these masterminds, what would the rest of us learn about how innovation really happens? So it's a very interesting question to ask, right? How do these people think, and how does an innovator think, and is there something we can pick up from there? In searching for answers, we undertook a 6-year study to uncover the origins of creativity. So I think in the previous session, I spoke about how there's a huge difference between how motivational speakers talk and how people in the academia talk, basis solid research. So this is basis to researchers' work. So they did a 6-year study to understand this question. Origins, it's not just creativity they're looking at, but also disruptive business strategies, something which goes on to change the rules of the game. For example, if you look at Facebook, the entry of Facebook just changed the rules of the game, right? Our goal was to put innovative entrepreneurs under the microscope, examining when and how they came up with their ideas on which their businesses were built. So they analyzed the timing of the innovation and also how they came up with these ideas through which their businesses were built. We especially wanted to examine how they differ from other executives and entrepreneurs. Someone who buys a McDonald's franchise may be an entrepreneur, but building an Amazon requires completely different skills altogether. By buying a franchise, you're an entrepreneur, but building a company is one thing, and just buying a franchise and building a franchise is another thing. We studied the habits of 25 innovative entrepreneurs and surveyed more than 3,000 executives and 500 individuals who started innovative companies or invented new products. You see, there's quite some comprehensive data being brought in. We were intrigued to learn that at most companies, top executives do not feel personally responsible for coming up with strategic innovations. In most companies, top executives do not consider themselves to be personally responsible for coming up with strategic innovations. Rather, they feel responsible for facilitating the innovation process. In stark contrast, senior executives of most innovative companies, a mere 15% in our study, don't delegate creative work. They do it themselves. In most companies, the top executives are facilitating the innovation process, but in the innovative companies, only 15% delegate. But how do they do it? How do they do this innovation? Our research led us to identify 5 discovery skills that distinguish the most creative executives. So if you're trying to learn from innovators, so someone has brought that taxonomy for us, has brought that classification for us, that there are 5 things. They've characterized an innovator through 5 qualities: associating, questioning, observing, experimenting, and networking. So now that we would be reading specific details of each category. We found that innovative entrepreneurs, who are usually CEOs, spend more than 50% of their time on this discovery activities than do CEOs with no track record of innovation. Together, these skills make up for what we call the innovator's DNA. And the good news is, if you're not born with it, you can cultivate it. So do you need this innovator's DNA, or can you actually cultivate it? Well, they're saying that you can. So that's the good news from the center. What makes the innovators different? Innovative entrepreneurs have something called creative intelligence, which enables discovery, yet differs from other types of intelligence, as per Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. They have something called creative intelligence, which enables discovery. It is more than the cognitive skill of being right-brained. It's much more than, being a so-called painter or musician or a right-brained person. Innovators engage both sides of the brain as they leverage the 5 discovery skills to create new ideas. Innovators use both sides of the brain. In thinking about how these skills work together, we found it useful to apply the metaphor of DNA. Associating it is like the backbone structure of DNA's double helix, 4 patterns of action. So they're saying that of the 5 qualities, the backbone is associating, and the 4 qualities wind around the backbone, like how your ATGC are on the backbone in a DNA. That's the metaphor they're using. So they help in cultivating new insights. And just as each person's physical DNA is unique, each individual we've studied has unique innovator's DNA for generating breakthrough ideas. So the combination of these 5 qualities for each individual is quite different. So it's a nice metaphor, right? Imagine that you have an identical twin endowed with the same brains and natural talents that you have. You both are given 1 week to come up with a creative new business idea. During that 1 week, you come up with ideas alone in your room. In contrast, your twin talks with 10 people, including an engineer, a musician, a stay-at-home dad, a designer about the venture. And so like you and your twin are basically coming up with a business idea. The twin has the same DNA, let's say. Generally, twins do not have same DNA. But hypothetical exercise, let us assume, in an imaginary situation, let us assume that your twin has same DNA as you, same natural talent as you. You are sitting in a room and you're thinking of ideas, but your twin is 1 talking to 10 people, very different kind of people, and 2 visits 3 innovative startups to observe what they do. 3 samples 5 new to market products, samples 5 products, and shows a prototype built to 5 people, makes a small prototype and shows it to people, how is this product and so on, like a sample. Ask the questions, what if I tried this? Why do you do that? At least 10 times each day during this networking, observing and experimenting activities. Who do you bet will come up with a more innovative and doable idea? It's not just more innovative, but also more doable idea. I hope you guys get what I mean by doable idea, something which actually fits in to the market, something which is possible. Studies of identical twins separated at birth indicate that our ability to think creatively comes 1/3 from genetics, but 2/3 of the innovation skill comes from the learning. First, understanding a given skill. Can the mics be on mute, please? If you're not talking, can we all maintain some decorum while? Yeah, thank you. So we generally believe that it's all genetic and so on, but research shows that, it's only probably 1/3 genetic. So first, at understanding a given skill, then practicing. We understand, we practice, experiment. Understanding and practice is all right, but are you experimenting the skill? And are you gaining the confidence to create? Innovative entrepreneurs in our study acquired and honed their innovation skills precisely this way. Discovery skill 1 is associating. Associating, or the ability to successfully connect seemingly unrelated questions or problems or ideas from different fields, is central to innovators' DNA. How do you connect the dots? Just see the thing behind me. Okay, they'll just come. wait, what? Yeah, connecting the dots. That's the theme of deep thought. So connecting the dots is one of the key things for an innovator. Entrepreneur Franz Johnson described this phenomena as a Medici effect, referring to the creative explosion in Florence when the Medici family brought together people of wide range of disciplines: sculptors, scientists, poets, philosophers, painters, and architects. As these individuals connected, new ideas blossomed at the intersection of their respective fields, whereby spawning the renaissance of one of the most inventive eras in history. So when people from very different fields come together, when you're able to marry ideas from very different fields, what they call Medici effect takes place. To grasp how associating works, it is important to understand how the brain operates. The brain doesn't store information like a dictionary where you find the word theater under the letter T. In a dictionary, how things are organized in a linear order, the brain does not organize them in that order. Instead, it associates the word theater with any number of experiences from our lives. Brain associates all related experiences. Some of them are logical, while others are less obvious. Sometimes, theater is related to West End or intermission. Some could be probably anxiety because of some performance in high school. The more diverse our experience and knowledge, the more connections our brain can make. If your experiences are very diverse versus you being confined only to one field, your brain can make more connections. Fresh inputs trigger new associations. For some, these lead to novel ideas. As Steve Jobs has frequently observed, creativity is connecting things. World's most innovative companies prosper by capitalizing on these divergent associations of their founders, executives, and employees. For example, Pierre Omidyar launched eBay in 1996 after linking three unconnected dots: fascination with creating more efficient markets, fascination for more efficient markets after having been shut down from a hot internet company's IPO in the mid 1990s, his fiance's desire to locate hard to find collectible paste dispensers, and three, the ineffectiveness of local classified ads and locating such items. So his fiance was trying to find something and there was an unmet need. Then he already was excited about IPOs. And three, there's the local classified ads were not able to serve that problem. So he connected all three of them. And so how did he connect all three of them? There's a problem, and that problem can be solved through an internet company, and internet companies were making big in the stock markets, right? You start an internet company, you show promise, you can get on the stock market, you can have a nice IPO, and you can make a fortune in the stock market. He realized the capability to build large internet companies, and there's a problem here, and that problem local market is not able to solve. He said, okay, let me solve it through an internet company. He knew internet companies, he knew a problem which is there, and he knew for that problem the local solutions are not good. So he connected the three dots and said, okay, I'm making an internet company for local ads. Likewise, Steve Jobs is able to generate idea after idea because he spent a lifetime exploring new and unrelated ideas. The art of calligraphy, meditation practices in an Indian ashram, the fine details of a Mercedes Benz. So he's explored design in various forms. He's explored spirituality, he's explored philosophy. And by blending all of them, Steve Jobs was able to create ideas. Associating is like a mental muscle that can grow stronger by using the other discovery skills. As innovators engage in these behaviors, they build their ability to generate ideas that can be recombined in new ways. The more frequently people in our study attempted to understand, categorize, and store new knowledge, the more easily their brains could naturally and consistently make and store and recombine associations. So the more they're able to, and not just, as I said in the previous workshop, it's not just about getting knowledge, but can I characterize? Like here, they characterized all the qualities into 5 kinds. Can I make them into categories? If I can understand stuff, would make it into categories and then store the knowledge, then the brain will easily be able to make, store, and recombine associations. The ability to make associations becomes easier when you're doing more and more associations. So what is the takeaway from the first one? One, am I doing diverse reading? Am I having diverse experiences? Am I only into technology or only into my core field, or am I getting into other fields? Two, am I making a variety of associations? Am I reading and listening to a variety of associations? Because if I'm reading and listening to a variety of associations, my ability to make associations might get better. Two, discovery skill, questioning. More than 50 years ago, Peter Drucker described the power of provocative questions. The more, the important and difficult job is never to find the right answers. It is to find the right question, wrote Peter Drucker. Innovators constantly ask questions that challenge common wisdom, or as Tata Group Chairman Ratan Tata puts it, question the unquestionable. Meg Whitman, former CEO of eBay, has worked directly with a number of innovative entrepreneurs, including the founders of eBay, PayPal, and Skype. They get a kick out of screwing up the status quo. They can't bear it. They spend tremendous amount of time thinking about how to change the world, and as they brainstorm, they like to ask, if we did this, what would happen? They don't accept the status quo. I think in the previous workshop, we spoke about Satya Nadella and how you can have a culture which goes beyond the status quo. So here they're saying all the innovators have this in common, that they don't like the status quo. And Steve Jobs, I think, was one of the most vocal voices against the status quo. I think goes very much against the typical Indian mind, right? So pro status quo. So one of the most of the innovative entrepreneurs we've interviewed could remember the specific questions they were asking at the time when they had the inspiration for a new venture. The questions have such a prominent role that most people could remember the question they asked when they thought of the innovation. Michael Dell, for instance, told us that his idea for founding Dell Computer sprang up from asking why a computer costs 5 times as much as the sum of the parts. Michael Dell asked, why does a computer cost so much? I would take the computers apart and observe that $600 worth of parts was sold for $3,000. In chewing over the question, he hit on his revolutionary business model. To question effectively, innovative entrepreneurs ask the following. They ask why and why not and what if. Most managers focus on understanding how to make the existing process, the status quo, work a little better. Most people only understand how to do it better. How can we improve widget sales in Taiwan? Innovative entrepreneurs, on the other hand, are much more likely to challenge assumptions. If we cut the size or weight of the widget in half, how would that change the value proposition? So they don't just ask, how do I do it? But they ask, if I do this, what would happen? What if? Mark Benioff, the founder of online sales software provider Salesforce.com, was full of questions after witnessing the emergence of Amazon and eBay, two companies built on sales delivered via internet. Why are we still loading and upgrading software the way we've been doing this all the time when we can do it over the internet? He wondered. The fundamental question was the genesis of Salesforce.com. So, as he says, it's asking the why not questions. I mean, why not do this, or what if I do this, and so on. So the questioning sets these people apart, and these sort of questions are something which they ask. Imagine opposites. In his book, Opposable Mind, Roger Martin writes that innovative thinkers have the capacity to hold two diametrically opposing ideas in their head. He explains, without panicking or simply settling for one alternative or the other, they're able to produce a synthesis that is superior to the opposing idea. There are contradictions. Two opposing ideas, two contradictory ideas, they're able to hold them together. They're not settling for one of the ideas. They're combining two opposite ideas to make a mega idea. Innovative entrepreneurs like to play the devil's advocate. My learning process has always been out of disagreeing with what has been told and taking the opposite position and pushing the others to really justify themselves. Whenever I see a kid do this, I say, "Are CEO banega." Because most people, as they grow up, I mean, I'm sure if you've seen Nitik today morning in the session, you would have seen he likes to ask those questions. So most of us lose that ability. Can I play the devil's advocate? No offense intended, but I'm just trying to question the other person, ask them to justify themselves, and learn a lot from that process. Pierre Omidyar told us, I remember it was very frustrating for the other kids when I would do this. So I don't know if anybody has this habit, and if people get irritated, yeah, a lot of people get pissed off. Sometimes, yeah, you don't make enough friends because of this. Ask, but that's okay. I think you'll get to leave your mark in world history if you do this. So asking oneself or the others to imagine a completely different alternative can lead to truly original insights. When you ask people to imagine a different alternative, embrace constraints. Most of us impose constraints on our thinking only when we're forced to deal with real world problems. Most of us impose constraints only when we're forced to deal with real world problems, such as resource allocations or technology restriction. When we have less money or when there's some technology problem, only then we think of it. Ironically, great questions actively impose constraints on our thinking and serve as catalysts for out of the box insights. Great questions are usually ones which come when you have a challenge or a constraint. So you think out of the box to come out of the constraint and solve. In fact, one of Google's 9 innovation principles is creativity loves constraint. To initiate a creative discussion about growth opportunities, one innovative executive in our study asked this question: what if we were legally prohibited from selling our current customers? Selling to our current customers. How would we make money next year? They just asked as a hypothetical question. What if we are legally not allowed to sell to our customers next year? How would we make money next year? This led to an insightful exploration of ways in which the company could find and serve new customers. Another innovative CEO prods his managers to examine sunk cost constraint by asking, what if you had not hired the person, installed this equipment, implemented this process, bought this business, or pursued this strategy? Would you do the same thing which you're doing today? What if you didn't do all of this, hiring this person, putting the machine, installing it, implementing it, and all of that? If you didn't do it, would you still be doing the same thing today? Through that, you can examine alternatives to what is being done. And the discovery skill 1 was associating, discovery skill 2 was questioning, discovery skill 3 observing. Discovery driven executives produce uncommon business ideas by scrutinizing common phenomena, particularly the behavior of potential customers. In observing others, they act like anthropologists and social scientists. Intuit founder Scott Cook hit on the idea for Quicken financial software after 2 key observations. First, he watched his wife's frustration as she struggled to keep a track of her finances. Often, the surprises that lead to new business ideas come from watching other people's work and live their normal lives. Cook explained, you see something and ask, why do they do that? That doesn't make sense. Then a buddy got him a sneak peek at Apple Lisa before it launched. Immediately after leaving Apple headquarters, Cook drove to the nearest restaurant to write down everything he had noticed about the Lisa. His observations prompted insights such as building the graphical user interface to look at its real-world counterpart, a checkbook, for example, making it easy for people to use it. So Cook set out to solve his wife's problem and grabbed 50% of the market for financial software this year. So he looked at Apple's Lisa and he saw that Apple's Lisa has a graphic user interface. And because it has a graphic user interface, he was able to use that product more comfortably. So he saw his wife's problem and Apple Lisa, when he connected the dots, he was able to get 50% of the market share. Innovators carefully, intentionally, and consistently look out for small behavioral details in the activities of customers, suppliers, and other companies in order to gain insights about new ways of doing things. So I hope this is making sense to you, that they're observing the behavior of people. Because when you observe the behavior of people very closely, you get an insight of how something can be done. Ratan Tata got the inspiration that led to the world's cheapest car by observing the plight of a family of 4 packeted onto a single motorized scooter. After years of product development, Tata Group launched in 2009 the $2,500 Nano using a modular production method that may disrupt the entire automobile distribution system in India. Observers try all sorts of techniques to see the world in a different light. Akio Toyoda regularly practices Toyota's philosophy of Genchi Genbutsu, going to the spot and seeing it yourself. Frequent direct observation is baked into Toyota culture. I think this goes again very opposite to India. In India, I mean, every student who gets out of college directly wants a research job, strategy job, and all these jobs. Basically, a typical Indian student says, I'm lazy. I don't want to do all that work. Put me in a manager's job. I'll boss around 10 people. But the real innovation happens when you have grassroots level experience, when you're able to see things on ground over how they're happening. You know, if you're an automobile engineering student, would you want to go and work in a mechanic shed and repair a few bikes or repair a few cars or something and understand how things happen ground up? So observation is the third skill. And again, when I talk of observation, observation is something to be learned and practiced. It is not merely the act of seeing something. Experimenting. When we think of experiments, we think of scientists in white coats or great innovators like Thomas Edison. Like scientists, innovative entrepreneurs actively try out new ideas by creating prototypes and launching pilots. As Edison said, I haven't failed, I've simply found 10,000 ways that do not work. So entrepreneurs are actively prototyping new ideas and they're doing pilots, low cost experiment to see if something works or not. The world is their laboratory. Unlike observers who intensely watch the crowd, experimenters construct interactive experiences and try to provoke unorthodox responses to what insights emerge. So they're not just observing, but they're constructing interactive experiences to provoke responses which are not usual. Because when you provoke responses which are not usual by asking people something or making people do something weird stuff, you see insights coming up. Innovative entrepreneurs we interviewed all engaged in some form of active experimentation, whether it was intellectual exploration, physical tinkering, like Michael Lazardi mulling over theory of relativity in high school, that's intellectual exploration, thinking about something. Physical tinkering, Jeff Bezos taking apart his crib as a toddler, or Steve Jobs disassembling a Sony Walkman, or engagement in new surroundings, like Starbucks founder visiting coffee bars. As executives of innovative enterprises, they make experimentation central to everything they do. Would you experiment in each and everything you do? What if this happens? What if that happens? And change something and see, just for the sake of it. That's a personality trait. Jeff Bezos' online bookstore didn't stay where it was after initial success. It morphed into an online discount retailer, selling a full line of products from toys to TVs to home appliances. It just didn't stay a bookstore. It started doing a lot more. The electronic Kindle is an experiment that is now transforming Amazon from an online retailer to innovative electronics manufacturer. Bezos sees experimentation as so critical to innovation that he has institutionalized it at Amazon. I encourage all our employees to go down blind alleys and experiment. Jeff Bezos say, if we can get process decentralized so that we can do a lot of experiments without it being costly, we'll get a lot more innovation. Scott Cook too stresses on the importance of creating a culture that fosters experimentation. Our culture opens us to allow a lot of failures while harvesting learning. It's not what separates an innovative culture from a normal corporate culture. It's what separates an innovative culture from a normal corporate culture. So, does your organization have a culture where people are constantly trying something new, experimenting something new? One of the most powerful experiments innovators can engage is in living and working overseas. Our research revealed that more countries a person lived in, the more likely he or she is to leverage that experience to deliver innovative products, processes, or businesses. In fact, if managers try out even one international assignment before becoming a CEO, their companies deliver stronger financial results than companies run by CEOs without much experience, roughly 7% higher market performance on average, according to research by Gregerson, Mason Carpenter, and Gerard Sanders. Procter & Gamble's A.G. Lafley, for example, spent time as a student studying history in France and running retail operations in US military bases in Japan. He returned to Japan later on to head all of Procter & Gamble Asia operations before becoming a CEO. So international experience counts. His diverse international experiences served him well and as the leader of one of the most innovative companies in the world. So associating, questioning, observing, experimenting, Experimenting as a way of life. Experimenting is something which is integral to what the person does. And last, networking. Devoting time and energy to finding and testing ideas through a network of diverse individuals. Are you talking to people from different backgrounds? Gives innovators a radically different perspective. Unlike most executives who network to access resources, to sell themselves or their companies, to boost their careers, innovative entrepreneurs go out of their way to meet people with different kind of ideas and perspectives to extend their own knowledge domain. Generally, people do networking because they want to get a job or get some career-oriented success. But innovators like to network only because they want to get new ideas and they get a kick out of getting these new ideas. To this end, they make a conscious effort to visit other countries and meet people of different walks of life. They also attend idea conferences such as Technology, Entertainment and Design, Davos, the Aspen Ideas Festival. Such conferences draw together artists, entrepreneurs, academics, politicians, adventurers, scientists, and thinkers all over the world who come to present newest ideas, passions, and projects. Michael Lazard is the founder of Research in Motion, notes that the inspiration for the original BlackBerry occurred at a conference in 1987. A speaker was describing a wireless data system that has been designed for Coke. It allowed vending machines to send a signal when they needed refilling. That's when it hit me, He saw that there was something made for Coke machines. And then I remember what my teacher said in high school. Don't get caught up with computers because the person that puts wireless technology and computers together is going to make a big difference. David Neilman came up with the key idea for JetBlue, such as satellite TV at every seat and at home reservationist through networking at conferences and elsewhere. So meeting people, listening to ideas, connecting those ideas, associating those ideas, I think can lead to innovation. Kent Bowen, the founding scientist of CPS Technologies, maker of an innovative ceramic composite, hung the following credo in every office of a startup. The insights required to solve many of our most challenging problems come from outside our industry and scientific field. We must aggressively and proudly incorporate into our work findings and advances which were not invented here. Scientists from CPS have solved numerous complex problems by talking to people in other fields. One expert from Polaroid with in-depth knowledge of film technology knew how to make ceramic compost stronger. Experts in sperm freezing technology knew how to prevent ice crystal growth on cells during freezing, a technology that CPS applied to its manufacturing process with stunning process. So how an idea from outside a discipline can be brought into a different discipline. Practice, practice, practice. As innovators actively engage in discovery skills, they become defined by them. I think these sort of become, whatever you read out, sort of become habits of most innovative entrepreneurs and founders. So they grow increasingly confident of their creative abilities. For example, A.J. Lafley, innovation is the central job of every leader, regardless of the place he or she occupies on the organizational chart. But what if you, like most executives, don't see yourself on or those on your team as particularly innovative? Though innovative thinking may be innate to some, it can also be developed and strengthened through practice. What if you're not innovative already? What if you do not have these 5 habits already? It can be developed through practice. We cannot emphasize enough on the importance of rehearsing over and over the behaviors described above to the point that they become automatic. If you can practice these behaviors above, it could be artificial initially. It could be you'll have to push yourself initially, but eventually they become automatic and a part of you. This requires putting aside time for you and your team to actively cultivate more creative ideas. This is why I tell somebody when they come to deep thought and they say that I don't have time for this, I say, don't come to deep thought. Because if somebody looks at it as quote unquote work, I used to tell all my fellows, if you look at it as quote unquote work, sorry, you don't belong. You're not one amongst us. Because for an innovator, as I say, innovation happens in your kitchen. Innovation happens when you take your doggy out for a walk. Innovation happens on your shit pot in the morning. Innovation happens everywhere. You don't have a specific, it's not like you sit before a paper and like, aajao idea, aajao, when the idea comes up, or you sit before an Excel sheet and the idea comes up and so on. So it becomes a part of you and all these become your habits. This is what at least I try to, cultivate among all the fellows who work at Deep Thought. So I hope for all of you now it makes sense that whatever I'm telling you guys, I didn't read this article, but somehow I found this article to be a key weapon If you don't listen to me, at least listen to this article. It is based on study of 5,000 people. So yeah, the most important skill to practice is questioning. Asking why and why not can help turbocharge the other discovery skills. When you ask why and why not, the other discovery skills get in. Ask questions that impose and eliminate constraints. Questions which both add constraint and also remove constraint. Interesting, right? Like what you look at that constraint, the example they gave us. What if it was not, you're not legally allowed to sell to your customers next year? What would you do? A constraint is brought. Or sometimes you remove a constraint. Okay, what if this was not there? How would I do it? This will help you in seeing a problem or opportunity from a different perspective or a different angle. Try spending 15 to 30 minutes each day writing down 10 new questions that challenge the status quo in your company or industry. If I had a favorite question to ask, everyone would anticipate it. Instead, I like to ask things that people don't think I'm going to ask. This is a little cruel, but I kind of delight in coming up with questions that nobody has the answer to quite yet. He says he enjoys asking questions for which nobody has an answer as of now. Michael Dell. To sharpen your observation skill, watch how certain customers experience a product or service in their natural environment. Spend an entire day carefully observing the jobs that the customers are trying to get done. Try not to make judgments about what you see. Simply pretend you're a fly on the wall and observe as neutrally as possible. Scott advises Intuit observers to ask, what's different from what you expected? Follow Richard Branson's example and get into the habit of note taking wherever you go. Or follow Jeff Bezos. I take pictures of real bad innovations, he told us, of which there are a number. So this is why, again, at Deep Thought, we get all the curriculum developers to do teaching observation and, the thread builder. Every day we're actively taking notes of what we're observing. Observation is an art. To strengthen experimentation at both the individual and organization levels, consciously approach work and life with a hypothesis, testing mindset. So do you have a way of life where you're constantly testing things, hypothesis testing mindset? You have a hypothesis in your mind and you're always asking what will happen. Like, let's say I have a hypothesis in my mind. What if I provoke Purva right now? Is she going to react or is she not going to react? Okay, my hypothesis was that she's going to react and my hypothesis came true. So are you constantly in this hypothesis testing mindset that there's a hypothesis in your mind? And again, my hypothesis was when I do this and when she laughs, everybody else is going to smile. And that hypothesis also came true. Right? So is this a natural habit to you? And I think magicians also have that. Sometimes you have a hypothesis in your mind, you try it. You don't know if it works. And if it works, you spot that it works and you build on it. So that's a mindset, a hypothesis testing thing. And it becomes a habit and a part of your personality. Attend seminars or executive education courses on topics outside your area of expertise. Are you reading only things in your area of expertise or are you going outside? This is why when people apply for physics or maths also, I say, if you want to do only physics, this will not help you. It's about innovation, and innovation is about going outside, and ideas can come from anywhere, or rather when ideas come from different places, innovation is more fertile. Read books that purport to identify emerging trends. When you travel, don't squander the opportunity to learn about different lifestyles and local behavior. Develop new hypotheses from the knowledge you've acquired and test them in the search for new products and processes. Find ways to institutionalize frequent small experiments at all the level of the organization. Openly acknowledging that learning through failure is valuable goes a long way towards building an innovative culture. So at an organization level, are you encouraging people to try new things and are you institutionalizing that? At Deep Thought, again, we encourage people to try new ideas, present them. Like yesterday, I think we had the Dashara contest asking everybody to present stuff. So that new ideas, every Monday, new roster, teams get changed, right? Try to get people to, tinker around, not get comfortable with one thing. That becomes important. Try spending 15 to 30 minutes each day writing down the questions that challenge the status quo in your company. To improve your networking skills, contact the 5 most creative people you know and ask them to share what they do to simulate creative thinking. 5 most creative people, go and ask them what they do. You might also ask if they'll be willing to act as your creative mentors. We suggest holding regular idea lunches at which you meet a few new people from diverse functions, companies, industries, or countries. Get them to tell you about their innovative ideas or ask feedback on yours. Let them tell their ideas and you ask feedback for yours. Innovative entrepreneurship is not a genetic predisposition. It's not just your genes. It's an active endeavor. Appen's slogan, think different, is inspiring but incomplete. They found that innovators must consistently act different to think different. Consistently act different. Consistently act different so that you can think different. By understanding, reinforcing, and modeling the innovator's DNA, companies can find more ways to successfully develop the creative spark in everyone. I'd like to conclude this and then take questions from you. And I'd like to conclude by saying this, that I think for a long time, I've been trying to tell people the importance of discussions on WhatsApp. A lot of them think, they come up and tell me, I'm an introvert and all. I say, if you're an introvert, bhaad mein jao. Don't work in an innovative company. I seriously say, bhaad mein jao. You can't talk to people, that's okay, you're shy, but at least text. I mean, I'm on a part of so many WhatsApp groups, and I'm constantly brainstorming with people on WhatsApp groups. And if those of you who follow me on Facebook, I'm actively experimenting. Every Facebook thing is like a taunt where I'm experimenting ki abhi log kya karenge iske liye? What will people do for this? How many likes am I going to get for this? Okay, iska like nahi aayega bol ke again experiment. So are you constantly trying to experiment? Are you constantly trying to network with different people, meet different people, listen to ideas, build discussions? I think these habits lead to innovation. And as they argue in the article, the more you have diverse experiences and the more you're practicing this association, and you also keep this funny. Some of you are very, very serious. Your serious innovation doesn't happen. You're funny, you make, the most unlikely connection of the dots, the most unlikely connection of the dots when you're funny. Then this becomes a habit, and connecting the dots is like dead easy for you. You breathe it. It's not something that's what they said, right? Eventually it becomes automatic. So I think this is a master article which one should read at least 5 times and in different points of life, because I think if you can imbibe the elements of this, you'll be a very different person. So the big question is, do you want to settle being average? Do you want to settle being average, or do you want to change the world? A lot of people would say, I want to change the world, but they're average in thought. But if you say, I want to go beyond average and I want to change the world, I think a big recipe is written down here. And I think networking is very important. I enjoy networking. Not because, I'm going to get opportunities, I'm going to get business growth and so on, but there's a kick out of listening to different ideas, connecting the dots, brainstorming and so on. One of the reasons why, on a holiday, why would I do a Zoom call? You might be wondering, why do I do so many Zoom calls? If I have something interesting, if I can share it with people, if I can take questions of people, again, that adds to my association, and I'm being selfish here. The more I meet different people and the more I exchange ideas with different people, my power of association, my power of innovation keeps getting better. So today for me, communication or so many things come naturally because I've constantly been doing it. So I think this is the innovator's DNA, and the world will be a much better place if more and more people can acquire this, and if more problems of the world can be solved. So I'll stop here and take some questions. We have 12 minutes to take some questions. Any questions which you guys have around what we discussed, or if there were some of the parts which you would want to be explained in a more elaborate manner? Any questions based on what we saw?
Tarun.
Yeah, Ram.
So the article talks about networking and association.
Right.
So possibly networking also feeds into association, right?
Association is how you connect the ideas. Networking is how you meet different people. So by meeting different people, you not only get ideas, but you get meta ideas of how to connect ideas.
Yeah.
So they're two different things. Come close, but two different things.
Okay.
It's like, why am I meeting all the people? Someone who is nowhere related to education, would I want to understand what they do? A networker would want to understand. Let's say someone says, I'm into agriculture and I do this. I say, okay, that's interesting. Tell me more about it. I want to know. But most people may be like, "Arey, mera field to agriculture nahi hai, I'll not know about it." So that's, networking can help you connect the dots. Can help you acquire the dots. And associating is how you
Connect
connect
the
all of
dots.
them together. Yeah. Sourcing and connecting, if I may crudely articulate it that way. Anybody else has a question? How many innovators here? Because innovators have to connect the dots and innovators have to ask questions. If there are any innovators here, you can ask your questions. Yeah,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on the Medici effect?
Yeah, so the Medici effect, as he said, is there's this person called Medici. He observed something. Is it a person? No, the Medici family, they brought together a variety of people and they asked them to, discuss ideas. And they were discussing ideas at the intersection of the fields, like a painter and an architect would try to combine things. So that is what they called as a Medici effect, when people of different fields are able to discuss ideas and bring a unique combination of ideas. Like one example of this could be Steve Jobs when he did calligraphy and then he was also doing computers. He thought, how can I bring calligraphy into computers? How can I put fonts into computers? Uske pehle, there were no fonts in computers. Before Steve Jobs, there were no fonts in computers. He brought in fonts because he married calligraphy with computers. So how you can blend different fields, that is what they're calling it as Medici effect, creative explosion, so much of creativity coming at once. Does this help?
Yeah, it sure did. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, who's the next innovator who has a question here?
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we are talking about the diversity, right? So with different experiences, we create the diversity. But how do we, manage the output out of diversity when there are different ideas coming in?
Correct. So that is where you'll also have to learn to associate and you'll have to prototype. Just getting ideas is not enough. That's the difference between a innovator and this entrepreneur, right? The entrepreneur is also prototyping, actively launching pilots. You do a small pilot and you see if it works or not. If it works, then you build on it. You do a low cost experiment. Do a low cost experiment. If it gives you a return, then you build on it.
Okay, Tarun, like in this particular article, in the observation section, there was a written that act like a anthropologist and social scientist. So how this is connected with the innovations, like observation skills and innovation?
That's a good question. I would encourage you to read one article about one Indian anthropologist, I guess. I think her name is Madhumita or something. Several years back, she went to Andaman and interacted with that tribe in Andaman. Okay. I don't know if you read the article. Last year, there was one Christian missionary who went to
Yeah.
Andaman to try and convert them to Christianity. They threw spears and killed him.
Yeah.
So there are some local tribes in Andaman who are very protective, who do not let outsiders come there. And it's also dangerous because we carry certain diseases. It's not only COVID, there are so many other diseases and we
Yeah.
carry them. And those guys do not have the immunity for the diseases we carry. We have the immunity. So sometimes we can infect them. So that's why Indian government, yeah, Sentinelese people, correct. So Indian government also bans people from going there. You're not legally allowed to go there. So once there was this lady who went there, anthropologist. So anthropologists study people and the amount of observation and their understanding is like a quintessential Indian mother in understanding a child. Extreme amount of observation, paying attention to intricate details and so on. So what she did was she made eye contact with them. They offered coconuts to them. They threw coconuts.
Yeah.
They offered them. The female members of the team went in. So they did a lot of little things to gain their trust first. And they were making, and so then the way she mingled with the little kids and all, she made friends with them. So it became easier. But eventually, Indian government cut down their funds and they could not continue the project. That's a different story. But if you read it, it's a very long article. But that explains. So anthropologists or sociologists, what they do is, I think they're very different from how even Don Norman writes it in his book, The Future of the Design of Future Day Things. That the way in which these guys do their observation and the way in which a science person does observation is different. Anthropologists and sociologists want to get absorbed into the culture, want to stay there for a long time and soak in there. I don't know, I'm just using a lot of metaphors, but soak in there, hang around there for a while, then you understand. It's like,
Okay.
see, you go to which
Like
state which state are you in right now?
Rajasthan.
Rajasthan. Let's say you go to Maharashtra for one day and you observe Maharashtra, versus you stay in Maharashtra for one whole month. You
Okay.
stay in a Marathi's family, you eat Marathi food, and you celebrate Marathi festivals, and you visit the places. Then you understand Maharashtra culture. That's
It
one
is
thing, and
like
you're just reading books and so on, right?
observing every minute detail. Like,
Immersing yourself and observing,
okay,
you know.
great,
I wouldn't just say observing every minute detail. You get actively involved.
great.
You're not just too bothered. You're not like मुझे observation करना है, मुझे observation करना है. ठीक है, let
It
me just
become
go with the flow.
natural.
जाके हाँ natural. जाके उधर देखता हूँ. You just like how spies are, no? If you see enough spy movies, what do? लोगों के साथ मिल जाते हैं.
Yeah.
जब मिल जाते हैं ना, the amount of intelligence they get is like amazing, of a different level. So that's how I think there's a difference between how the world of science does observation and how anthropologists or sociologists do observation. I hope this answers your question. How does status quo change? Well, status quo changes when you're able to think of what if or why not kind of questions, when you have alternative to that, right? Status quo changes when you can think of an alternative to the status quo, if that answers your question. A lot of times the status quo doesn't change because somebody has not thought of the alternative. You're only preserving what is already there. But again, going back to Rupali's question, how do you know if that's going to work? Well, you do a low-cost experiment and you check. But it fundamentally starts with you having the ability to challenge the assumptions, being aware of the assumptions and then being able to challenge them. So who's the next innovator who has got a question to ask? We have 3 more minutes left, so I can take one question. Who's the next innovator with a question to ask? Someone was going in with a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, not exactly a question, but an idea.
Yeah.
So there's a point of networking association and different sort of cognitive tools that are given here, right? So you run a lot of WhatsApp groups. Is there, or can there be a sort of dedicated social network that sort of triggers these, or sort of a space where these kind of diversification happens and where you can groom your innovation skills?
I think that's a very good question. That's a very good question, because WhatsApp is not exactly meant for it, but how would you change WhatsApp to do it? Like, would you let people label important ideas? Would you let people hash the ideas so that the related ideas can be, connected? Yeah. So that's my next startup idea. I don't know if I shared that document with you.
Oh, really? Actually, I'm thinking of something similar for a while. In fact, okay, let's take it off.
Yeah. So, but I'm looking at it as, imagine a McKinsey goes B2C. Imagine the combination of a McKinsey and a Siri. That is my startup idea.
Okay. So every individual
approaches your problem statement, but in a completely different dimension. It's like, I have to put it this way. Munna Bhai MBBS mein Gandhi always goes with him, no?
Yeah, got it.
What if there's a scenario where all the thought leaders are always with you? Whatever you're
The
doing in
personal
life, the thought leader, personal assistant, but the personal assistant is a thought leader. Ram, what are you doing? Integrative thinking. Chupchap do integrative thinking. Volke Gregerson comes and tells you. Or Ram is getting angry. Gandhi is like, beta aisa gussa nahi karte. So the personal assistant changes into a thought leader and gives you the advice there. Or to make things spicier, 2 thought leaders come and give you opposite views. So that's my idea, and hopefully it'll take off soon in 2025.
Do you think there is enough demand for a new social network that sort of builds on ideas, not on events or people?
Somebody, I think, tried something like that. I forgot the name of this thing, but I don't think it took off. But I think in next few years, I think the demand will come up because see, right now startup ka demand बढ़ रहा है. There are people who are talking of entrepreneurship courses. The people are saying we'll make your kids an entrepreneur, and also entrepreneurship is sort of becoming cool. So I think the next stage would be innovation within that entrepreneurship, because when you talk of entrepreneurship, there are a lot of people who just like copy paste ideas ka startup bana rahe. But I think the next stage will be, as people do more and more entrepreneurship, people will want to read, people will want to network. So I think demand might get created soon. Okay. I would like to conclude this session by asking everybody to answer one question. Everybody, whoever was listening. Okay. If someone doesn't answer, I'll assume that you didn't listen. Okay. That is my freedom. It is your freedom to not answer, and it is my freedom to assume. So I want to answer one question. Based on this one HBR article reading experience, how would you contrast it with conventional content, and why do you think it's important for everybody to consume content such as this? That's my question. If everyone can answer this, and we'll close the call. How is this different from traditional content, and why do you think it's important for people to consume this sort of content? I mean, traditional content as in Sydney Sheldon and all, or anything which we all are usually exposed to.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Ram.
Yeah. I think two main factors that this sort of is of higher quality in compared to other general content that you're referring to here is one, it's research backed. So research backed and coming from a credible position, like in a credible medium like Harvard. The second thing is there is a sort of, so the framework could have been directly given, but what happens like in this article and in few good books is that the framework of these five association, questioning, networking, experimenting, and observing. So the framework is filled with multiple case studies. So you have a story around framework. So I think it has got a higher stickiness factor, and it's credible. And it comes from a research back point of view.
Yeah,
So it's likely to be valid.
Yeah, so you're saying one, it is research based, a lot of case studies are being offered, comes from a credible source. Okay, thanks, Ram. Who's going next?
Yeah, similar. Can I speak, Tarun?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, similar to what Ram said. The idea that this, like the whole, the kind of points that have been made in the article have been backed by research. That makes the whole hypotheses that they are making or the points that they are giving, the framework itself, is coming from like an experiment which has already been, or which has like a good data set from which the data is being derived. So I think that makes it a lot more credible than something which is based off of like ideas which aren't backed by facts.
If you say that, you should read research papers, no? Research papers are all credible. But what makes this different from a research paper? When this is of higher quality than a research paper as well. So what is unique here?
I guess the fact that not only does it present the reader with like original research which has been done similar to research papers, it also articulates it in a way which makes it more uh, what is it called, like accessible to the reader, makes it more relatable to the reader, which in a lot of cases research papers are not. The articulation in itself is so complex.
Then you can read popular science articles. No, popular science articles are also research based, they're relatable. But this goes a step beyond that.
I think the one difference that...
And you see, I'm doing exactly what they said in the paper. Question people. Yeah. by taking the opposite stand. Yeah, go
am I
ahead.
audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the one
Yeah, go ahead, Purva.
Yeah, so one difference that I actually saw like in a research paper and here was that there was a story that involved everything, as in whatever they said. I mean, whatever the things that they told, as in associating, questioning, networking, everything that had a story behind it, a story involving these things. So this is a very good way because anyway, story is remembered more than a concept. So yeah, I think this is one of the reason that one would or should read this. Also, while making a point, yeah, so while making a point, it also involved, through stories, it also involved the emotions of the people. So yeah, I think it's not only a feel good factor substance. So yeah, so I think
Popular science articles also will have story, will have relatability, will have credibility.
uh, what I think in article like this, there is a different perspective. Like if we see in our daily life, then this type of thing we are not working on. Like when we talk about the like embracing the constraints, like we are trying to avoid such things, and when we read such an article, it helps us to think about it. Like each and every one of us is not asking questions for whatever thing is given to us. We are just accepting that things the way they are. So when we read such articles, we get another perspective that in such a situation we can do some other thing, like going in the flow, the natural flow in which the things are happening. We can even ask a question on them, like an opposite thing. So such an article gives us another way to deal with a particular situation which in which we are normally dealing with. So that can be helpful or in having another perspective.
That's a very valid point from Rupraj. So I hope this answer also talks of what kind of articles we could read so that our taste of articles can improve. So our taste of articles can improve. So we can, I hope nobody here reads Chetan Bhagat, but yeah, that's what I mean. Taste of articles can improve. Yeah. Who's going next?
Yeah, just adding on to his point, it is all like giving us the perspective.
Can
Yeah,
I?
yeah. So please go
Rupal,
ahead.
you complete and then yeah.
Okay, so yeah, like it is giving us the different perspective to think about. Like it is giving us the idea how we can innovate and everything. But yeah, at the end of it, it is also saying that it is not just about thinking, but also about execution. So it's not just about whatever it is in our mind, but also about what we are actually doing and what we are actually practicing. So like the prototype that we are questioning now only. So yeah, like more we practice, the more we get it. It can remain in our head, but like if we do it, then only it can sustain. So yeah.
There's an actionable component for this. Okay. Yeah. Who's going next? Yeah.
Uh, just
Hi,
like
Tarun.
Rupali said,
Yeah, complete. Yeah.
just like she said, we should practice it regularly. And if an individual is able to associate, like for example, they are good at associating, which is an internal and which is also can be acquired from nurturing oneself. Also, they are able to question and also they are able to observe. The next obstacle they might face is experimenting. Like they might not be having the suitable environment to do experiment, or the fear of failure might be a major obstacle for them to experiment furthermore. And after that, networking also plays a major role because they may not know that it it puts value more to your experiment when you do networking on a wide, diverse field or in domain. So that's why we should read this article, and that is how it is differentiating from the culturally, culturally put ideas.
Okay. Yeah, I think Surbi wanted to go in. You can go in now.
Yes. Uh, in the article, one of the sentences says about if you're taking a McDonald's franchisee, then you're a good entrepreneur. I'm not very precise about it, but it says something like that. So at that time, I could relate to it very much because I'm a Marwadi and we here have so many big shops and so many business I see. But the difference between this article and what we are doing as entrepreneurs, I see that we might be able to do business in a certain way, but we are not able to advance ourselves in other domains of life, the in a way which right now the world is going. I see somewhere there is we lacking uh, by thoughts or in case of applying many new technologies. So this type of article, I feel, with being and successful an entrepreneur, we can also be very advanced. So many things can be applied, and that particular venture can be very much successful. And we can also be walking with the world, whatever the time is, we can be walking with that and not lacking behind.
Right. Yeah, Vidya, what are your observations around the article?
Yeah, Tarun. I mean, I would go along the lines of what was previously said, that, like, we would probably find, many research articles on innovation and all that, but I feel that, I mean, I do not have exposure to different varieties of articles, but I feel like this is like giving us a new framework for looking at innovation, like the empirical creativity thing you say, like based on things we already know, it is giving us, a new framework for looking at innovation. And it's sort of very dense, and as Rupali was saying, very dense, very information packed, but still pushing us to, into action.
Yeah, Miss Kajal, would you want to
Yes,
add?
yes, I wanted to add. Um, I might give a different, my outlook might be a little different. It reminded me of a book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And it's not about wealth. When we hear the title, we would think that it is talking about how growing rich. It's about being rich in different ways. And there is one thing which, when you are talking about networking, you're talking about creativity, talking to people who are creative. There are times, he had a very good experience in that. He said you can create your own council table in your head with all the creative people that you can think of. There are times you might not find people who would you could interact with. You can create your own council and interact. That is also a very good way of enhancing oneself, one's ideas, and using visualization. That's what I wanted to say in short.
Sure. Great. I think that's an interesting parallel. Um, does anybody else want to add something?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
go.
So my actually I found two things interesting in this article. First is the it's promotes diversification also, that one part. And second thing is it's one point strike me is that how, like, how two opposing ideas, uh how we can make an hybrid to make a bigger idea. So this one we miss in so many articles, so many general articles. And next, uh, just like reading these stages, I found it's just like teaching a way of life. It's no need to be apply only for innovation. It's for any normal person also he can implement uh, in his daily lifestyle. That I found, like, in parallel to this, I found like uh, just like in getting things done book, it gives 5 stages of how to plan effectively or how to execute. So in the same way, how we have to what are the stages we can introspect ourselves, that has been highlighted in this. And in this
I'm not, see, I think we're going too much into specifics of the content. So that is my
yeah,
point I'm trying to make here. I hope we all can listen well, because often one problem is we are very bad listeners. Let's listen properly. Okay. I'm not trying to talk of the specifics of this article. I'm sure the specifics of the article can be discussed, but I'm making a meta level argument of what is the kind of content you consume and what is the kind of content you can consume. So I think one observation which probably didn't come across is this article is a very meta level article. Meta level as in it generalizes a lot of trends and gives you a common trend for all the trends. Like it says that all the innovators tend to do this, right? Like associating itself is a meta thing, that 3 or 4 different things are classified under one category, right? It characterizes and gives you meta trends that, cultures have to be built this way, that all these guys are usually against status quo and they get a kick out of being against status quo. It gives you meta trends. So one, meta articles tend to be nice because they give you a they give you a better lens to look at the world. They give you more power to look at the world. Because if you read something specific, it's applicable only in that scenario. You read something meta, it's applicable in a wide range of scenarios. So it gives you a bird's eye view, as they call it, right? Or aerial view, as said. It's very abstract, as Ram says. I mean, I didn't want to use the word abstract. Yeah. It's right. So one, that becomes important. And two is, you see, these are people who have just the same brain as we all do, but they're able to harness a certain aspect of the brain. I wouldn't say they are smarter than us and all, but certain aspects of the brain have been harnessed really well. So to get a sneak peek of great innovators, great entrepreneurs, great scientists, or people who do well in whatever that domain is, to get a sneak peek and to get rich analysis of it, I think adds a lot of value to our lives. That could be a scientist, that could be a storyteller, that could be a writer, that could be a cricketer, that could be anybody, any profession, or that could even be a homemaker, a rigorous analysis of homemakers, who are the world's most efficient homemakers, what characterizes efficient homemakers, or who are the most irritated homemakers, what characterizes irritated homemakers. There have been studies like that. People also do studies like, why do people sneeze? So I was just reading this book just now, Carol Dweck, Mindset. I'm sure most of you must have heard of this book. Satya Nadella also endorses it in a big way. Carol Dweck's work on mindset, growth mindset and fixed mindset. It's very interesting, the kind of study they're doing on people and seeing how we can change our mindset and so on. So I think if we can read this meta-oriented content, which for the lack of a better word, which explains human excellence not as a motivational subject. I think the difference between superfluous motivation, where we read anything is possible, you should do this, you should do that and all, versus this is a very case oriented approach. You have case studies being offered, as Ram said, for each principle there are 2 or 3 case studies, because when you get case studies, right, what happens is that you get a very concrete sort of picture. You can visualize it to a greater degree. Someone comes and says, Kavita, you should engage in risk taking. Not taking a risk is a risk. Like, okay, very good. But what does that mean? Versus if someone can go into specifics of it, offer a case. And the thing is, every case is narrated as a story, usually. But the difference between a story and a case is, in a case, there's a dilemma. That's a fundamental of any case, any business case. Any case, there's a dilemma. You understand a case really well when you understand the dilemma. As in, like Rupali said, I have an idea, but I have too many ideas. So what should I do? Should I pursue it or should I not pursue it? That's a dilemma. So a case is a specialized story. It's a business story in the sense that it's a real story, or even if it's not a real story, it's a hypothetical story. It's not purely imaginative story. It's a it's a carefully constructed hypothetical story. Please observe my words, carefully constructed hypothetical story in a case, or it's a real story. So you put a case, and in the case, if there's a dilemma, you understand the dilemma, and from the dilemma, you learn a principle, which is transferable to any scenario. That's what happens in the world of business, in the world of leadership also. So we can enrich ourselves by consuming more content like this. I hope in the next workshop, I come up with something very different from what I did in the first 3 sessions. Yesterday, it was an interview. Today, it's a HBR article. Tomorrow, what is it? Even I don't know. So wait for it. Even I'll wait for it. So that's again, innovators DNA, right? Don't be predictable. And don't be predictable to yourself also. Your life will be too boring if you're predictable to yourself. So if you're asking me why does the Zoom link come late all the time, this is the reason why it comes late all the time. Till the last moment, I'm still thinking, kya dalna hai? Maybe I'll just tell one small story and close. We used to do this science session inter-school competitions, right? So yeah, Ram is a live witness for this. Yeah, Ram is my evidence for 2018 quiz.
Yeah, 0 to 1.
Yeah, so when I conduct inter-school competitions, like 20 schools, 30 schools come, right? 2014 competition, the quiz was supposed to start at 8:30. I woke up in the morning at 6 o'clock and set the question paper. People will just freak out. And then 2018, Ram was in my home, he came over because I needed some help with the question paper. I woke up in the morning at 5 o'clock. We finished the paper by 8 o'clock and the competition started by 9:30. We had to travel 30 kilometers to the venue. And by then the papers were ready and the competition started. So most of the time, my question papers are out in the last moment and people freak out. What the hell? Your organization's reputation, everything is at stake. It's a big thing. How would you do it in the last moment? I mean, in some sense, I like MS Dhoni for this reason. But it's like, but there's a conscious reason why I do that. It's not that I do it in the last moment. I'm thinking about it. I'm incubating an idea in my mind. I have a vision of what experience I want every student to go through by doing that quiz. For me, it's not about whether they get the right answer or wrong answer. It's for me, the experience they go through while answering that. So till the last moment, I'm letting that creativity flow in. Till the last moment, I'm letting the ideas come in. Then finally, when the deadline comes, okay, no more innovation. Time to put it on paper. I put it on paper. So this is why I enjoy not doing things in the last moment, right? So if someone says, what if you fall ill and that thing doesn't go on? I mean, unfortunately, as of now, I'm the only Socratic dialogue moderator. So I know if I'm not there, it's not happening. So yeah. So anyway, I'll cancel it if I'm ill or something. So if I'm going, I'll very well go with a last minute question paper. And if this doesn't freak you out, the Socratic dialogue question papers are 5 pages long. And they're very dense. They're as dense as this. You can download them on sciencession.tv website and read them. Socratic dialogue questionnaires, which are right. Philosophically very deep meta questionnaires. Through a series of questions, a point is made. We've been doing it for a long time now. So there are a lot of tried and tested questionnaires which children have used to 7th class kids defeating college students in a competition on business strategy. 6th class kids presenting differential calculus and so on. We have some questionnaires. You can check them out. So yeah, Ram.
Yeah, I actually associate something. So what Tarun has mentioned about last minute, like retaining it till the last minute and coming up with a solution is actually called Zeigarnik effect in psychology. And if you don't know, Martin Luther King exactly came up with the "I have a dream," the phrase of "I have a dream," which like stuck with many people just before he went onto the stage. So what happens when you have one task that you did not complete is your brain in its default mode network is searching for many solutions, and suddenly in the last moment you will have a sort of a stroke of insight. So that's actually the core insight from this one TED talk called about TED talk about procrastination by Adam Grant. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Nice, thanks. I think now I have a articulation for this. I'll read this up.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining in. So tomorrow I'll be announcing the next 10x mindset workshop. I hope you'll enjoy that. It'll be at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Yeah.
Are you also sending in the 49 AK-47?
That will release tomorrow. I'll compile it tomorrow morning. The AK-47 list.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye all. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you.